heard about the plane with the spiral staircase in first class. The plane with the 2 wide aisles and the 3 widescreen movies and the 8-foot ceilings in economy. And chances are you've wondered, who's going to get this incredible bird off the ground? Now you know.
The Boeing 747 is perhaps one of the world's best known and easily recognizable airliners. First launched in 1969 flying with Pan American World Airways, the jumbo jet quickly became an icon of the jet age, and it's evolved through several different generations, from the original 747-100 to the 200, which still flies with some cargo airlines today, to the 747-300, which unfortunately was not very successful, seen in this commercial here.
It's official. Now there's a new 747-300 to Europe. A 747-300.
The 747-300, seen here with Belgian airline Sabena, was the next generation of the 747, set to replace the older 200 series. However, she was really a bad seller, for a couple key reasons. One of them being several months later, the 747-400 would take her very first test flight. The 747-400, introduced in 1988, would introduce several new features, including winglets to the 747, new advanced engines, a larger hump behind the cockpit, and a 2-person glass cockpit system with enhanced computers. Northwest Airlines would be the first to put this aircraft into service. Talking Northwest Airlines and the 747-400, if you're interested in seeing more of this aircraft, including me walking through the very first 747-400, check out the full video on my YouTube channel of the 747-400, now at the Delta Flight Museum in Atlanta, Georgia. The 747-400 is easily recognizable due to those iconic winglets and the larger upper deck hump, as well as the General Electric turbofans now equipped on the aircraft. Another airline to take delivery of 747-400s was KLM, being one of the largest operators, taking their first in 1990. The 747-400 saw lots of service in Europe, with other carriers such as British Airways taking the aircraft in 1990 as well. And then we have Lufthansa taking their 747 in 1990, and the subject of today's video, flying the 747-400. Enjoy the video. There are certainly not many things that would make me want to get up at 4 a.m. to take a United Airlines flight from Detroit to Washington, D.C., but that's exactly what I did when I found out there'd be a rare opportunity to fly Lufthansa's vintage 747-400 from Washington Dulles. Once arriving in Washington Dulles, I had many hours to kill here, so I hung out at the National Air and Space Museum, which was pretty cool. Also, check out the full video of my flight with United to Washington Dulles if you're interested in seeing the rest of what I got up to there. However, while I was waiting and genuinely enjoying myself at the museum, I got this message. My flight had been delayed. But what do you expect flying Lufthansa? Let's hope there are no more problems today. And on to the airport we go. Stepping into Washington Dulles Airport was incredible. This is such a cool airport, reminiscent of the golden days of flying. Its iconic curved terminal was designed by Eero Saarinen, a Finnish-American architect, who also designed the TWA terminal, which is now the hotel. Also, I love these vintage signs, like this one for my Lufthansa check-in, and soon it was time to do that. This was a complex process, but finally I was directed to the person who would check me in.
Hello.
May I see your passport?
Yes, certainly. Here are you.
Thank you. And where are you traveling today?
Heading to Frankfurt in business.
Okay.
When I arrived, the staff tried to send me away, thinking I couldn't surely be flying in business class, which was kind of rude, but a little funny.
Alrighty. Now, since you're in business class, you have access to the Lufthansa lounge, which is across B50. You can board directly, your seat number, and then bag tags, and you're all set.
Alright, thank you so much.
Pretty soon I got through security and was airside at Washington Dulles Airport, ready to head to the lounge.
Alright, here we come, all checked in for business class, off to Frankfurt. Well, first, off to the lounge. Actually, we get access to two, the Lufthansa lounge and also the United Polaris being a Star Alliance carrier with business class.
This is my first time visiting Washington Dulles Airport, that is, checking back in for a flight. Unfortunately, when my United flight arrived, the Lufthansa check-in desks were closed, so that meant I couldn't even check in to get airside for a good 3.5 hours, which is why I hung out at the museum, like you saw earlier. Washington Dulles Airport was also pretty cool. As it's so big, it really is amazing to me. There were also several planes I'd never seen, like the many from United Airlines. I passed several lounges, like this British Airways lounge, and headed down the main hallway with these iconic flags, reminiscent of the countries you can visit from Washington Dulles. Pretty cool in my opinion, but I'm a bit of a flag geek. And there's the Washington Dulles Air Traffic Control Tower, which unfortunately replaced the classic look as the functional air traffic control tower. But for me, it was going to be all about Germany and the Lufthansa lounge.
Right, so here we are. Here's the lounge. This is the business lounge and the center lounge combined here. Lufthansa business class passengers have access to the business lounge, and we'll check it out. Hello, I'm flying in business today with Lufthansa.
Thank you, allowance is downstairs.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this was interesting. The business class lounge is down these ominous looking stairs, and is supposedly the lounge that's not as nice, reserved for business class passengers and frequent flyers with Lufthansa or Star Alliance. As nice as it is to have access to a lounge, I mean, there's some Breitling clocks on the wall which are super cool, but the business class lounge really could be a bit better. The Senator Lounge upstairs is supposed to be a lot better, and I don't know why they don't send business class passengers here, but that's beyond me. There were lots of different drinks on offer, a coffee and tea station, and some various German snacks and treats, most of them which I did not know, so forgive that. The pretzel bites I do know, and they looked and tasted pretty good, as did this bread. There are also several cakes on offer, and Coca-Cola and other drinks like that. However, some of these main food items, I didn't understand what they were, nor did I try them. However, they did all seem pretty hot, which is nice for a lounge. There was also soup on offer, as I later learned, and there were some oranges. However, I couldn't find a squeeze-it-yourself orange juice machine like they had in Brazil. That would have been cool.
It's really quiet down here. It's kind of dark, and there aren't very good views, because it's kind of below ground, as you saw in the pictures earlier. However, I'm going to grab some quick stuff here, probably a pretzel and maybe some stuff like that, and then go check out the Polaris Lounge, which I have access to through United being a partner of Star Alliance, as it is honestly a much better lounge, and we'll check it out. Well, I'm here outside. Here's the gate at Dulles Airport where my 747 will eventually be. For being honest, the lounge downstairs, being the business lounge that Lufthansa passengers have access to, left a lot to be desired. I mean, the food was okay, but the rolls were kind of crummy, and there aren't any ramp views because you're kind of below, as I mentioned earlier. But I know an even better place. We're going to check out one other lounge, maybe two. Let's see.
Yeah, so I'd actually ended up checking out two lounges. This was the Turkish Airlines lounge, which was pretty nice, and an improvement over the Lufthansa lounge. It had much better seating, a delicious Turkish food, and this beautiful model of a 777, which is always a highlight for me as an aviation geek. It also had an upstairs area with better views, including the classic air traffic control tower and this Austrian Boeing 787. And as I mentioned, the food was pretty good. You heard no complaints about this curry from me.
Okay, so here's the update so you all know. We checked out the Lufthansa lounge, you saw that. We checked out the Turkish Airlines lounge. The food was really good. I thought it was good. I brought my dad some of the food. He definitely gives it the seal of approval, and I thought it was pretty good. And we are now heading to check out the United, the flagship of United, the Polaris Lounge, which I hear is supposed to be super awesome. United Polaris Lounges are supposed to be the best in the United States. Let's see.
So this was the Polaris Lounge, and let me just say, it was absolutely incredible. The United Polaris Lounge literally took my breath away. I mean, it's beautiful, it's huge, has lots of delicious food stationed in different sections, and lots more to explore, which I'll show you in the coming minutes. It has this buffet area just for coffee and tea, which is probably 7 or 8 feet long. I mean, this is huge. It also has this gorgeous view out on the ramp, including a United 777 heading off to Frankfurt as well. I also want to leave the sound in here for a minute so you can hear the ambiance of just how quiet it is in this space. It's really amazing given how huge it is. Most people in here were doing work, but I suppose this is a business class lounge after all. And there are also several more snacks over here, including apples wrapped in plastic, which is really weird. I don't know why this is. There's also cheese and various deli meats on offer, and the kitchen back there. I also apologize for some of the quality of this lounge footage. A lot of people were giving me odd looks for the filming, which is totally expected. Also, I can't make a lounge video without mentioning one thing. The bar was huge. I was really impressed with the size of the bar, but I did not partake in any beverages. Additionally, there were these different areas over here, which I didn't understand, and finally, the dining room. So here we are in the Polaris lounge, United's best lounge, and the one that is the one you're supposed to go to if you're flying in international business class with United, or their Star Alliance partners. This part is the dining room. It's a sit-down, basically restaurant included here, and it's all included in the price of your ticket. And I'm hungry, so let's check it out. The lounge in here was pretty incredible. This restaurant is also included in the price of your business class ticket, meaning there are no prices on the menus. Also, there's metal cutlery, which is quite rare airside here in the United States. Also, here are the menus for those who have interest in that, and my choices can be seen above. The carrot ginger soup with fried leeks was delicious, as were my sea scallops. There was also a panna cotta dessert, which I had to try. Overall, the dining room was great, and so was my food. But it was also time to try something really special. In the Polaris lounge, you have access to different shower suites. These are super cool, stocked with everything you'd expect, such as towels and other things of that assortment. The room was also pretty big, and it felt really nice. The lounge has been absolutely incredible, and to top it all off, there's a shower suite. I think the best thing to do now is to take a shower because, as my friend Jeb Brooks always says, one of the top best tips for long-haul travel is to just take a shower, even if you don't have a clean set of clothes to put on. It just makes everything feel a lot better, especially at the end of that long flight. So we're going to go do that now. Well, that certainly is a whole lot better. A shower certainly does make things better. I'd agree with all the people that have said that, especially about long-haul travel. That's about it for this part of the video. Now it's time for what you actually came for, to actually fly on the Boeing 747. We'll get ready to go, but first, something's not quite right. I need to fix this. There we go. We got our nice little 747 pin on my jacket. Now we're ready to fly. Let's get ready to go. One final thing. The Polaris lounge has these stars in the ceiling, resembling that Polaris is a constellation. A very nice and simple touch. I also caught the sunset in this United Express Embraer 175, and there's that 777 again, which as a reminder is also heading to Frankfurt this evening. Pretty soon I left the lounge and made my long walk past several cool planes back to where I was going to board the 747. Heading back to the gate, I caught a view of my 747-400 for this evening, which was really cool, disregarding the horrible glare on the windows here. Also, I know this footage is bad, so here's a much better view of our 747-400 for this evening. Our ride for this evening was this 747-430 Delta Alpha Bravo Victor X-Ray, built on December 12th of 1999, and has been with Lufthansa its entire service life. In fact, the day I traveled, she'd just turned 25 years old. That's enough history, let's board. Hello, here's my boarding pass.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Alright, it is happening. Lufthansa 747-400, Dulles, all the way out to Frankfurt. Upper deck, business class on the 747-400. Almost 3 years in the making. Let's go. What a gorgeous bird. For those of you aviation geeks who care, Victor X-Ray was one of the final 747-400s ever delivered to Lufthansa, and even wore a special Christmas hat when she was delivered, as she was built and delivered to them in December. Hello.
Business class?
Yup, 81A. Thank you. Finally going. We're off. It was absolutely incredible boarding this 747-400. Whoa. Upstairs, 81A. Thank you. Once entering through door 1 left, we were walking through the business class cabin on the lower deck. This is pretty cool, but also this business class is much more cramped than the upstairs, as it has a middle section, which would really suck if you were stuck here in business class. Pretty soon I reached the stairs, and up we go. Upstairs! Off we go! Climbing those stairs! Climbing up the stairs while trying to film holding my camera and carrying my other bag in my left hand was not the greatest, most beautiful footage like I'd hoped for. However, you're still upstairs on a 747-400.
Wait, what? How does that have upstairs?
And this is the upstairs business class cabin. Also, this is the very same aircraft and seat that Paul Lucas flew in on his 747-400 video, from Palma to Frankfurt. Hello. I'm
Hello.
in here.
Coming in.
Waiting at my seat were blankets and pillows for sleeping later, and this awesome headrest with a built-in light. I also had this incredible view from being upstairs on the 747, and also I snapped a photo. I had an IFE screen and more bedding in the ottoman, but pretty soon it was time to get ready to depart. Pre-departure beverages came around. I chose orange juice. There were also nuts in these little packages. I also checked out my seat controls. There was also the ottoman, part of the bed for later, and the in-flight entertainment screen.
So that's our menu for today.
Thanks. The menu was pretty nice, very large, and had a lot of choice. Also, I thought it was cool that we were on a B747 at gate B47. And this view looking down into the terminal and down on the jet bridge is only available on Boeing 747s or A380s. My seat back was also fully adjustable with foldable wings here to help keep your head supported while you sleep, and a nice reading light, as well as other vintage features like the no smoking and seatbelt sign, and the overhead air vents and lights, which make a satisfying click sound. Or at least they're supposed to make a clicking sound. Mine never worked. Talking vintage things, there were these old seat controls for these vintage seats. However, I have a lot to say about this later. So at this point I give you a formal apology. I completely lost all my footage of takeoff and landing for this flight. However, thanks to my friends Wake Turbulence, by the way check out their channel, linked in the description, we are able to have this takeoff and landing footage, so enjoy that. And just like that, our 747-400 was up in the air. Thanks again guys for that footage. Now onto the seat controls. These controls were very sensitive. Sometimes you'd barely touch them and they'd move, or they wouldn't move at all. They're also right where you rest your arm, which is a horrible placement for seat adjustments, especially in business class. Onto the in-flight entertainment. Its remote was no better. Despite the fact that the in-flight entertainment remote also lights up, you have to kind of scroll with this little black touchpad. It's a pain to scroll, and you then have to click on it very hard with a lot of force to select any content on the screen. The IFE screen did have plenty of choices, and the IFE overall is pretty good. I just wish that this was a touchscreen, or at least have it closer to you. I get that it's far away so you can rest your feet, but using this air mouse as they call it was really useless. At least there was a nice moving map, so I could track our progress on our way to Frankfurt this evening. In fact, talking the moving map, that was the only thing on the in-flight entertainment that worked very well. It looked clean and modern, and except for that remote, I really enjoyed that in-flight entertainment feature. As we flew over Maryland, there's Baltimore out the window, I decided this was a good time to take a flip through the safety card, and also explore the last features of my seat that I haven't shown you yet. There's my feet in the ottoman, and the vintage 747-400 safety card.
The crew even let me take it home with me as a souvenir. As a reminder, I'm up front in the bulkhead, those two seats over there, and right in front of us is the cockpit. Pretty darn cool. There's also a lavatory in the front, which I didn't film because it was dark. People were talking, settling in for the flight, and getting ready for the meal service, which would be coming around shortly. I also decided this was a good time to try to adjust my seat to make it slightly more comfortable before the meal service. I then decided it was time to check out the menu for this evening's dinner service. Just so you can know, the appetizers I didn't get to choose, or the salad. For the main choice I went with the stir-fried chicken, which sounded good, and hopefully it would be. There are also various cheeses and desserts on offer. And for anyone who cares, these are the options for breakfast. Before the meal, this starter came around, the palate cleanser as they called it. I have no idea what was in this. I think tomato and a grape. I also ordered an apple juice, which was pretty good. At this point in the flight, we were flying over Bar Harbor, Maine. Pretty soon the appetizer came around. My appetizer of grilled asparagus, beets, and farro seed came around. It was like a salad, and it was pretty good. There was also some German dark bread and another side salad. The second side salad wasn't that good, but the oil and vinegar were pretty good. The crew also offered a glass of water, which I accepted, and tried out the German bread, which could never disappoint. As well as beets and asparagus, there was also goat cheese. This was okay, however, it wasn't the best choice, I think. Also tried the green leaf salad and cheated a little by mixing my oil and vinegar together and dipping my German bread in it. This made it even better, and I highly recommend this trick. My main course of stir-fried chicken with oyster sauce, assorted vegetables, and egg-fried rice came around. It was pretty good, better than I expected for a German airline. I do wish there had been some more German choices on the menu, but what are you gonna do? Everyone likes stir-fry, I guess.
That's actually not big bad. Chicken's good, pretty tender. The rice is good, which is good. It's easy to screw that up on the plane. And overall, the meal's been a solid 6 out of 10.
Dessert was by far the best, but we are heading to Europe, so I expected that. After dessert, I was beat. The crew turned down my bed, and I was ready to go to sleep. The bed was actually decently comfortable, and I put on my eye mask and fell asleep for the duration of the rest of this flight. I awoke to a box of chocolates, which was nice, and then decided to turn on the in-flight entertainment and check on the map to see our progress. Unfortunately, I'd slept for so long, we were only about 40 minutes away from landing in Frankfurt. However, there were these nice views on sunrise coming into Germany. There was also this little view of the wing, the best I could do, and I whipped out my phone to check the temperature. Coming in to land in Frankfurt, we flew through the cloud layer and also went over several nuclear power plants. I found this super cool. Also thanks to the Air Clips YouTube channel for this great footage of the 747-400 landing into Frankfurt. Now it's time for some reflection. Well, how was the flight? Overall, flying the 747-400 was extremely incredible for me as an aviation enthusiast who tries to get as many miles on 747s as possible. This was also my very first flight on board a 747, and sitting upstairs in business class was a real treat in itself. However, it is worth keeping in mind the price. It's expensive to sit upstairs in business class, and although you get a slightly better seat and decently better food, there's not a huge improvement. That is, unless you're flying on a 747-400, which was my purpose for sitting in business class today. Overall, Lufthansa might not be the best airline out there, and the seats might be a little outdated, but the 747-400 was the purpose of today's video. Once we landed at Frankfurt, we had some pretty incredible views of these Lufthansa 777 freighters and an A320neo. We also parked at a remote stand, which was a super highlight for me, as I said goodbye to the 747 business class cabin and prepared to get off to board a bus bound for the terminal.
Bye-bye.
Take care. And I thoroughly enjoyed using the bus gate. These views up close of the 747-400 were truly incredible.
Oh yeah!
A lot of people were upset that we got a bus gate, but I am sorry I was not sorry. For an av gig, there's nothing more perfect than a bus gate and a 747. Pretty soon we got aboard this crowded bus, and I bid a fond farewell to Victor X-Ray, my first flight on a 747-400. It was then time for our bus to give us a free tour of Frankfurt Airport, giving us some incredible views, like this DHL Airbus A300 and this Singapore Airlines 777, heading out from Frankfurt bound for Singapore. The morning light was beautiful, the aircraft were super close, and this was one of the best parts of this trip, just riding the bus. As much as people loathe bus gates, this is why I like them, simply for the views they afford. And another 747-8. Keep an eye out for that video coming soon. I also flew on one of Lufthansa's Airbus A320s on my short connection here in Frankfurt bound for Munich. That will be a separate video of its own, as this video is already long enough. I also spotted an A340, a 787, and an A320neo as we headed to the terminal here at Frankfurt. Also, one final thing, regarding Condor's livery, do you like it or dislike it? Leave me a comment.
Well, that was really fun. Now I'm here inside Frankfurt Airport. I have several hours here to do some plane spotting and look around before connecting on a shorter Lufthansa flight to Munich. That's going to do it for the video with the 747 though. I hope you've enjoyed. If so, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, I will be wishing you blue skies and tailwinds